Well, it's been a long and difficult 3 years, but today the Ghana Education Services, it has successfully restored the education calendar to pre-COVID times. Well, there's a statement coming through from the Ghana Education Service indicating that schools will resume for new academic year on October 3. So the statement, excerpts of it you have on your screens right now. In fact, that's the entire statement as we speak, pointing to the fact that management of the Ghana Education Service wishes to inform the general public that reopening date for the basic schools, that's KG primary and junior high schools across the country, for first term of 2023-2024 academic year is 3rd of October 2023. This brings back the academic calendar back to pre-COVID-19 period, and we wish to also convey to all teaching and non-teaching staff the sincere appreciation of management for the immense support during our efforts to ensure teaching and learning during the difficult period of our country. By this letter, the Regional Directors of Education requested to communicate the date to all the MMDEs, that's the Municipal Metro District Directors of Education, to inform all heads of basic schools to bring to the attention of parents and guardians and students to take note to prepare accordingly for a smooth and effective academic work. And that's the statement being signed by Dr. Kwabna Bempatando, who's the Deputy Director General for the service. Okay, now let's hear from Quincy Questing, who's a spokesperson for the Education Ministry, joining us now. It's good that all of this is coming to pre-COVID era, but then the question about forging ahead. What concrete structures are being put in place now by the ministry to sustain the gains that you've been able to make over the years?
All right, thank you very much, and then good afternoon to you and your viewers. I mean, definitely we are aware that pre-COVID, we had an academic calendar that was rolled out, and that began from September to July in terms of the starting point of the academic calendar. But of course, due to the disruptions occasioned by the COVID and the fact that we almost spent almost a year in the house, and the fact that we needed to make some adjustments and get the instructional hours. I mean, we are all very much aware that there were some difficulties and kind of some change and some irregular calendar that we were following. But recall also that we made a promise and assured the general public that within a space of 3 years, we're going to work to revert it. And that is why we are here now. Nothing basically is going to change when it comes to the instruction and the instructional hours. It's just that because it's always been 14, 13, 13 or 14, 13, 14. I mean, particularly if you look at within the academic year, we had about 39 weeks that students are supposed to be in school and study. In between these 39 weeks, we have divided it into first term, second term, and third term. And it's important that I add that when it comes to this conversation, we are referring to the basic school, that is from KG up to the GES level. So we are just by this communique saying and once again assuring parents that we are reverting, or we've been able to revert to the old times where school began largely in September or October. This essentially means that we are going to have our first term and also school reopening in 3rd of October, and then they will close somewhere around December. And of course, when you look at the second term, to essentially students are also going to enjoy like 3 months, that is January to March. And then of course, we begin again in April. And then, of course, from April, which is the third term, where it begins also to somewhere July ending. So this essentially means that students and teachers are now going to enjoy the long vacations, which was almost 7 to 8 weeks that they used to have previously. So it's just, how do you call it, a revert to the old normal that we used to know. And essentially, it's also an invitation for us to say thank you to our dear cherished teachers and the students who are to improvise and a lot of times have to forfeit most of their, how do you call it, most of their vacations because a lot of them had shorter vacations. But this time around, because we have been able to revert to the normal or the old normal, we should say that we want to thank them. And from the 3rd of October, we are beginning the 2023-2024 academic year.
How about arrangements for the for those in junior high school, the BECE? Are you doing any changes about that too?
In terms of students, I mean, if you can be specific with the question.
Yeah, in terms of the timeline or the dates, because there was some adjustment to that as well, I believe.
Yes, so as soon as this reverse back to the old normal, essentially we are going to go by that calendar, not the one that we are witnessing now. So essentially, I mean, the times that we used to write BEC, that is where we are going to write. It won't be. So essentially, all what we used to, in terms of the academic calendar, we used to know in the past, where school began in September and then ends in somewhere June, July. That is what we are going to do. I mean, so what it means is that in terms of BEC, of course, I mean, this conversation is also at the basic school level. Everything has reverted to the previous arrangement that we all used to, including even the BEC. Because I mean, there wouldn't be any point that you change the schedule of BEC whilst the academic calendar has reverted to the old normal.
COVID-19 has posed significant challenges. It's also presenting an opportunity to learn. What has the service learned from all of this, and what sort of lessons are you picking from the the pandemic era, just to influence reform going forward?
Yes, obviously. I mean, yes, it has its own pros and cons. I mean, the cons largely had to do with the disruptions that were within the calendar and the fact that we all needed to adapt. But I also have some positive outcomes that we've all learned. I mean, today we are having a conversation largely when it comes to e-learning. Today, if you look at, let's say, an agency like SendLoss, it's never been improved and retooled and improved like never before. Now, IT, or how do you call it, digital education is now on the rise. If you look at, for instance, interventions like Gallup, under the Gallup project, for instance, now you have head teachers and headmasters now trained when it comes to the use of the use and adaptation to digital education and digital learning. Today, we are talking about the the iBox and the offline component, and the fact that students can even learn without, necessarily the assistance of even a teacher, or without a teacher necessarily standing in front of them. So, I mean, these are all lessons that we need to improve on as a people, and then make it transform our education space in all.
And speaking about the education sector, I'm sure that at the ministerial level as well, there's some policy considerations and much more you're willing to do as you go on this long vacation to provide you the opportunity to reflect and to build on the agenda of the ministry, which is to increase access and improve quality across the country. How are you going about that, and what plans do you have for the future?
Are you asking of reforms at the ministry?
Probably there are some policies in the pipeline aimed at improving quality, I believe.
Of course, I mean, you and I are very much aware that education is largely centered on three key variables: access, quality, and then relevance. The fact that access and quality, when you marry it has to have an impact on our socio-economic transformation. And so clearly, if there is no, quality education, there is no way we are going to have education having an impact on our socio-economic transformation. I mean, it is the more reason why you have always heard the Minister for Education saying that we cannot memorize our way out of poverty, and the kind of education that we know is not education that solves societal problems, that makes students assertive, that makes students critical thinkers. And so you are very much aware that in terms of even the reform implementation, from the basic level, we've revised and reviewed and implemented a new curriculum. Also at the SHS level, I mean, if you look at administration, for instance, largely, I mean, the government had largely promised free SHS. But in addition, you had the Minister for Education also single-handedly spearheading STEM education, which is, I mean, the order of the day, because in the 21st century, revolution and the 21st century world. At no point can you, how do you call it, train students to solve societal problems if they do not have knowledge in STEM. And so yes, largely the reforms is centered on realigning and repositioning our educational system to make sure that we meet the 21st century demands.
We wait to see what then happens in the coming year, but of course it's something we're all looking up to. Thank you, Quincy Questing, for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
He's the spokesperson for the Ministry of Education.